Okay, thank you for coming together. I don't quite feel like I'm here yet. I'm still kind of in New Orleans. Maybe I'll just stay there. So I told you that you'll love New Orleans. Was that right? That's not something I exaggerate. When I make these promises, you'll love this place. You will be amazed by that place. Okay, but we're back in LA, so what do you want to talk about?
Swamiji Ananda would like to speak. Go ahead, Ananda.
Yeah, beloved Premodaya, since I'm back and having shared at the retreat positive things about myself, I felt quite some shame. I know it's not necessary, but it's just the feeling of shame coming up of having shared actual things about myself, which are positive. That's one thing. And then another thing, I've been seeing coming up more and more, and it's quite random when it comes up. That's a less positive thing about myself, that I am quite jealous often, or envious, or jealousy. Maybe I have spoken about it before, but it's something, I try not to judge it, I try just to look at it. But yeah, so shame and jealousy. And yes, the retreat was great, and New Orleans is fantastic.
Envy, the correct word is envy. People misuse the word jealousy. Envy.
Okay. And it's very random. Like some moments where it could come up, it doesn't come, and then in obvious moments it comes up, or in not so obvious moments it comes up. It's like I cannot find the. I'm also not looking for it, but I don't seem to. There's no logic to it.
So shame and envy always mean, at the very least, that there's some kind of feeling, some kind of idea that other people have something that you lack. Otherwise, why would those feelings be there? So if you want to look for it, look for what you feel you lack, that you see in others and wish you had, that you have the idea that you don't have it.
Okay.
So if you felt shame about saying good things about yourself, it must mean that another unconscious thought is there that it's not valid.
Although it felt absolutely right.
Yeah, but then shame came afterward. So some people are prone to a feeling of lack or not good enough, or others have something we don't have. Some people are prone to that, others aren't. So you're saying that you're prone to that.
Yeah. It seemed like the retreat stirred some things. Yeah, that's why it's coming out.
So what would you like?
What would I like?
Yeah.
To at least be okay with the shame and the envy.
So you want to be okay with unpleasant feelings. Unpleasant feelings, you know, are kind of irrational.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't you rather not have those feelings?
But yeah, that would be, yes. Yeah, I would prefer that.
So that didn't even occur to you.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't register as a possibility.
I guess it's possible.
So just understand, just think about that it means you feel you don't have something that other people have.
Mm. Okay, yeah, I spoke about it with Shantidasa, and she said, yeah, she also used the word lack. Yeah.
So it won't be possible to think about it without it being painful. Because if we believe we lack something that most others have, it's a painful thought.
Mm.
So see where that goes. If you think about it, see where it goes. But the go to not think about it will be, if you really think about it seriously, it'll start to feel painful. So don't let that stop you. Everybody believes various thoughts and ideas about themselves in relation to all other people. It's not always about lack or somebody else has something I don't. For conventional people, it's often very external. Other people are wealthy and I'm not. Look at all the millionaires and I'm not. But when this is thought about profoundly and long enough and starts to get clear, you come to the understanding that equality is real. that everybody has what they have and are what they are, and there's no inequality going on. It just doesn't look the same in everybody and in every life. But there's a lot of man-made ideas about fairness and what people have and don't have. These are all part of mind. They're not part of the reality. The reality is everybody's 100% equal. Existence doesn't do unequal, and fair is a pale substitute for just. But the human mind comes up with these things. This is not part of any reality. This is part of how the mind tricks us. So in reality, I'm sure we can locate people who envy you, but that would seem odd to you. They're imagining you have something they don't have also.
Yeah, it seems to have to do with something very basic, like basic recognition or something. The lack of recognition. But I will look into it.
Well, recognition, what do you mean by recognition? What does that refer to?
It's like extreme recognition would be fame. It's not about that, but by being seen, just like recognized.
So recognition from the outside.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a false coin. That won't really help with what you're talking about, because you can have all the recognition in the world, but if you're feeling like you lack something, you'll still believe you lack it. External recognition is one kind of delusion, and these other internal ideas are another kind of delusion. Choose your poison. So you'll have to think about it very deeply and wrestle with it and feel bad.
Okay.
But the spiritualization of the whole person leads to the actual understanding that you can't ever validly compare yourself or compare anyone to anyone else. Everybody's completely unique and individual, and everybody is completely equal and in the same boat. This is one form of the comparison game that society encourages and that spirituality requires you to get rid of.
Well, intellectually, that's a way to get out of it and to act really for seeing it for real. But then
Don't worry about getting out of it. Just continue to have more and more understanding. You may or may not ever get out of it in this lifetime. I don't know. But I wouldn't try to get out of it as much as first think about it. If you're thinking about it with the idea of getting out of it, that's not the same as thinking about it objectively. And remember, when you're thinking about it, that everybody else is running around with some kind of parallel idea. It's not unique to you. It may not have the same form, but or the same content, but it's the same thing. Some kind of self-judgment. Okay.
Thank you.
Swamiji, Imani has a question. Imani, could you go to the cushion, please?
Well, you don't know if she has a question. She would like to speak. She may
Yes.
not have a question.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Is there anything wrong with wanting?
Depends what you want.
Yeah, I've been kind of, as you know, the workshop, I've been trying to see if I can figure out what it is I want. And I've come across a lot of people kind of, just saying there's something wrong with wanting or something to do with attachments and to let go of those. And I feel like for me, it's important to actually get to the point of wanting and then first, being okay with even wanting and getting what I want before I can.
Well, all human beings want, right? All living beings want. They want something, usually some form of happiness. So it's not possible to be a human being and not want. It's possible to be so depressed or so impaired or so hopeless that you kind of stop wanting, but that's something else. If you're not in that condition, which is not common, everybody wants something. Are you saying you don't want anything?
No, I'm trying to figure out what it is that I want.
Yeah, you should get clear on what you want. What you want is a primary question. What do I want? Because you have a limited time span, and it's not that you have to get what you want, it's that you have to know what you want.
I have some idea, but it's not clear. Yeah.
So let it get clear.
Also, listening to Ananda Dev share about envy and shame, I could relate to that. And I could also relate to what he was talking about, recognition. I could almost, because it's hard for me to even describe what that's, but that's as close as I have gotten to. So yeah, and immediately when I followed what you were saying, there was so much pain. It was, so and your advice, about just staying with it and.
No, my advice was for him to think about it.
Okay, so what is your advice to me?
I'm not in the advice business.
Okay, what to do with?
Well, that was his issue. Don't take on his issue just because you have a similar issue. Stick with getting clear on what you want.
Okay, one thing at a time. Okay.
Well, that's more significant. If you're not clear what you want, that's a spiritual situation.
Well, I have a sort of separated spirituality with worldly life, you know. So I
Doesn't
have
matter.
this,
Just get clear on what you want.
yeah. Okay.
Let it become clear, whatever that amounts to.
Okay. Thank you, Guruji.
If you don't know what you want, you're just blowing in the wind. And that's not helpful. Eventually, you have to want God's will more than anything else. But you have to start by knowing what you want right now. It may be worldly, it may be non-worldly, but you have to know. There's always going to be one thing that you want more than anything else. And what you need to know is, what do you want in terms of the whole lifespan? What do you want such that you don't leave this life without having attained to it, whatever it is, material, immaterial. That's the starting point, so that you have a chance to, at some point, get to wanting the highest, wanting truth, wanting to know God, wanting reality, whatever form your mind thinks of it in. But you can't artificially take yourself there. You have to start by knowing what you actually want and then move forward. And it changes. Because you didn't want when you were 5 what you wanted when you were 20, what you want when you're 60. So it's not a fixed thing. But at some point, if you advance spiritually, it'll be a fixed thing. You'll only want the spiritual actuality. You'll only want what's right. If you're lucky. But you have to know what you want. The materialist view is you should want something exterior. You should want something to strive for, usually wealth or popularity. So there's preset ideas, but to not be clear on it holds you back. So it doesn't matter if it's material or non-material. What matters is to be very, very clear on what you want. And that's your starting point. If you don't know what you want, you don't know where to go. You don't know what direction to go. And many people live their whole life not knowing what they want. And if you ponder it and get clear and find out you want what most living creatures want, to survive and be happy, then you have to figure out what that means. So it's not an insignificant question, what do I want? And no one really asks you that. So you have to get to that point. They tell you what you should want. They don't ask you, what do you really want? So it's easy to be confused. That's why we started the Beyond Self training program, a 36-week intensive head to toe spiritualization process and getting clear. That's why the first week of those 36 weeks, 39 weeks, the first week starts with, what do you want? Getting clear on it. Doesn't mean it won't change, but it does mean you've got to know. If you've never pondered it seriously, or you can't answer it with clarity, then that's your challenge. Coming to the point where you know what you want. Okay?
Swamiji, Devaraj would like to speak. Devaraj, could you go to the cushion, please?
I wanted to share that I'm envious of Surya for the time she got to serve around the retreat and the time she got to spend with you, Guruji. And I didn't want to keep that inside.
She hardly spent any time with me.
In your proximity.
She hardly had any time in my proximity. You're envious of something you're imagining.
Yes.
Or something you're assuming.
Yes.
So did you ask her?
No.
See the problem?
I see the problem. I also see the challenge of asking.
So another solution to envy is ask the person that you're envious of. And 99 out of 100 times they'll burst your bubble. It'll turn out either they don't have what you think they have, or they'll share with you some kind of problem or issue where you see that your envy doesn't really apply. Envy always means you're assuming. Always.
I feel embarrassed about the envy.
Well, envy's embarrassing. Yeah, to speak about it is always embarrassing. It says 100 women in a room and a woman walks in who's the best dressed woman of all the women in the room. And she just has perfect taste and she's wearing the best clothes money can buy, and all the other women are envious. They're all assuming. So if they ask the woman, it wouldn't be unusual for the woman to say, I hate the fact that I'm so fashion conscious. I spend all my time shopping, I spend all my money on it, and I would like to change it, but it's like I'm obsessed with it. I don't like it. So what they're envious of, 99 people are envious of something that she considers a curse. When you ask the person and you hear their experience, you have a good chance of that bursting the envy bubble, because it turns out it's not something that they see as great. But you're thinking, oh, it's so great. But you're giving the perfect example. You're envious of all the time she got to spend with me. It was about 4 minutes. Ask her, she'll tell you. So these are the stories we make up in our mind to make ourselves feel bad. That's the motive. The motive is to think somebody else is getting something and we're getting shortchanged. Somebody else has something and we have no way to get it. Somehow we're losing and somebody else is winning. This is the way that cultures, societies, Western societies teach you to think in terms of winning and losing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't teach you to love yourself, to honor yourself, to appreciate yourself. They teach you to compare yourself to others, and then either you're the winner or you're the loser. This is the competitive mindset. Competition. Capitalism means competition. It doesn't have to be capitalism, but if it's a capitalist country, it guarantees that competition will be emphasized. But it's usually based on competition no matter what. So competition is the worldly way, and you're always going to lose. You're always going to find somebody who does it better and somebody who does it worse. You're never going to be where you want to be, or where your mind thinks you should be. There'll always be somebody taller, there'll always be somebody shorter. There'll always be somebody with better clothes, somebody with worse clothes. But when you're in envy, you're only seeing the one with better clothes and thinking it's not possible for you, or that you're failing somehow. Or they have an ability you don't have. They have good taste, you don't have the same. Or they have the money to buy really nice clothes and you don't. Whatever it is, your mind will find valid reasons to make the envy seem like it's legitimate. But no feeling of envy is legitimate. But some people are more prone to it than others. And for those who aren't prone to it, they're prone to something else that's just as corrosive or just as self-defeating. So everybody's got some way of thinking that's self-generating, that always ends up that the end conclusion of it is, I'm not good enough, or somebody else has it better than me.
I can see it's related to my self-criticism and self-judgment.
Well, that is the self-criticism. But if it makes you feel any better, everybody else is doing it too. Everybody has their own version.
I don't want it to make me feel better, but it does make me feel better. Thank you.
Most of us have that going on. Only people who've really gotten to a point of much higher consciousness are out of that trap. So the spiritual road includes the road out of it. Psychologists can explain it all they want and help people, treat people for it all they want, but the road out is not psychological. The road out is spiritual. They may be able to help you feel better, be less self-critical, but it's not the road out. The road out means to be finished with the comparison game completely, and that requires a fairly expanded consciousness.
That's one thing that I very much want, is to be done with the comparison game.
Well, then you have to make sure you're putting everything into the spiritual, that you're not leaving any stone unturned in the spiritualization of the whole person. And even that doesn't guarantee you'll be out of the comparison game, but that makes you have the potential to possibly get to that point. Without that, there's no chance, because your mind will find something. Even if you conquer one, your mind will find something else. Only a genuinely higher consciousness can genuinely love itself. When you love yourself enough, you won't play that game. But most of us have a long way to go. And it means always that we're still identified with this body and this story. It means we're still attached to the worldly attachments. Otherwise, it can't arise. So that's why I say it's got to be a higher consciousness that lifts you out of it, because higher consciousness means you've successfully transcended your attachments, you've successfully disengaged from the identifications. You know yourself as a spiritual being. You're not stuck in the idea that you're a human being. You understand that's just one definition and not the important one. The important one is that you're a spiritual being. The common idea for religious people or people who have some kind of idea of an afterlife, the common idea is that right now you're a human being, and then after you die, you'll be a spiritual being. But you're a spiritual being right now. And after you die, you'll be the same spiritual being you are in life. So develop that, because that will go with you. Develop it enough, and your consciousness expands. With enough of an expanded or higher consciousness, this comparison business goes away. Because you're focused on what matters, not what mind games are common for people. But it's not, the first thing to understand and accept is it's not some kind of failing or character flaw in you, that everybody has something until they don't, and very few people don't. Only those who reach a truly higher consciousness. good enough for now.
Swamiji, Riza, Manya, and Noah would like to speak. And Shanti.
I saw Nova's hand go up.
Noah, would you like to go to the cushion, please?
You got to raise your hand high when you sit there because she can't see you like this.
I also
Right
wanted
in
to.
front of her.
I also wanted to talk about envy because it was this week. Sort of a colleague, she did something really tremendous, and I was really, really impressed by it. And then I was struck with envy because I thought, well, you know, oh, she did that, and I didn't do that, and so the mind games of just that stingingness of envy, and then I reached out to her, you know, to get together because I was like, well, what if we just like share and we learn from each other? And so we're going to get together because she has so much to offer, and I think I have things to offer her. But I think for me, the antidote to feeling that like competition or not enough or that stingingness was just knowing that none of this is real, and I'm just here to serve. So it just doesn't even matter. And so, but I can see that without that spiritual understanding, I would stay in that trap, and it's a painful trap of like, I mean, there just isn't really a way out of it. And
Well, you're guaranteed to not, you can't win. It's guaranteed.
yeah. And so I felt the sting of it, and then I just let it all go and reminded myself that, you know, to turn my back on the material, that none of this is real, and to just share and serve and share and serve. And that settled, I think that settled it. And it just thought, it's not a big, it's just, and I'm, you know, so.
Well, that's one way. There are endless ways. There are many, many ways. Another way is if you really know in your heart and soul that all are one, then somebody else's success is your success.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually feel it. You can actually be happy for them as if it were your success. That doesn't even take a higher, particularly higher consciousness. That just takes the true understanding that oneness is real. You can get to that without having to wait till you have an expanded consciousness.
I remember a long time ago you said, you can, when you see, you know, out in the world, you see happiness and you just take it as your own. Anyone, people are laughing or smiling or together, and that you take it as your own. And I've been doing that because that really works. Because, yeah, but it sounds sort of similar to the,
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
The point is there are lots of ways, lots of antidotes to the painful and corrosive nature of envy. And self-criticism or feeling of lack or feeling that somehow others are better off than you. You'll always easily find people who seem better off than you. And you don't bother looking for people who are worse off. But there's plenty of those too.
Riza, you're unmuted. Could you go ahead, please?
Yes, I find this a very interesting conversation. There's one thing in being envious, but what about being the receiver of envy and what that does to you too? I'm sick of hearing people tell me, well, you've had 2 good marriages. You married 2 wealthy men. You have a million friends and on and on. But they don't think about the other side of this. The heartbreak I suffered, the things that I've gone through. It does something to be a receiver of envy too. It's very destructive.
So you don't have to receive it. Just because someone aims it at you, you don't have to receive it.
It's not that easy.
I didn't say it was easy. But it doesn't have to, you don't have to allow it to enter you.
There's always the other side, as you just pointed out. When you're being envious of somebody, there may be another side to their life that you're not looking at.
Yeah, and envy means a nicely gift-wrapped package, and that's all you see is the ribbons and the bows and the gift wrap. You're not looking inside the package. Envy means you're not seeing the whole package.
And I can't say that I haven't been envious. I was very envious when everybody went off to New Orleans and the doctor wouldn't let me go. You know, I was starting to feel sorry for myself. And then my sister's friend who's had ovarian cancer and she's bipolar, and she called my sister up and told her, oh, I'm graduating Phi Beta Kappa from the University in June. With all that, I thought, oh, I think I'll back off here. But it's also does something to a person to feel guilty. Maybe I was lucky and maybe I shouldn't complain about anything or whatever. You don't know how many times I've heard this. Oh, you don't understand relationship problems. You never had any. You have a million friends. You don't know what it's like. I thought, oh, really? That's all I want.
Well, they don't know the whole package, so you have to remember that and not take it in so much as, because it's being said as a barb, it's being said as a criticism, but it's not valid. You have to see that. Like you say, they're not seeing the whole package.
So I think that's the big, not only for, I mean, I need to remember that too.
You don't have to take it in so much. You don't have to. Oh, it's a kind of a veiled assault. You don't have to let the assault hit you. So understand that they're trying to hurt you. It may not be conscious. They may not be aware of it. It may not be malicious, but it is a kind of trying to hurt you. You don't have to let it hurt you. You don't have to take it in. If somebody shoots an arrow at you, you can get out of the way.
I don't move that fast anymore.
You move fast enough to get out of the way of that.
I'm glad everybody had a good time in New Orleans.
Well, I promise that everybody will love New Orleans, and seems like everybody did.
Thank you.
Manya, would you like to go ahead? You're unmuted.
You had talked at the end of the retreat when I was, I am so excited about what I found inside of myself. And, you had said, keep finding it, and, that it was just a short exercise. And it was so palpable for me throughout the retreat, and then even traveling back here, and it's so strong and so palpable in me. And the other thing I notice about it, to me, is that it's the energy is very outgoing, and then there's so much joy that I feel, and way more joy and way more energy than certainly that I ever knew was there, by a magnitude of many, or much. So, I'm really grateful, and I feel like just that it is such a treasure, and that it's palpable enough and it's tangible enough to me that it's in me, and I can experience it. So I'm just really joyful.
Well, the nature of joy is it gives you much more energy. It's an energetic phenomenon. The advertisements want to tell you that Red Bull will give you energy, but it won't. Joy will always give you much more energy. If Red Bull works for you, it's the power of suggestion. It's in your mind. But joy is never the power of suggestion. Joy is the real energy.
And what's interesting is it's literally, there's like an awareness of this is how I was born, and then everything that covered over it and that made me, all of the conditioning and misery and pain and hurt that, constructed my experience of myself. And even what I'm noticing now are the ideas I have about myself, where I had a thought that I normally thought was accurate. Like, oh, okay, this is how you are, or if you do this, this is going to be your experience. And then I'm able to reverse it, wait a second, I don't think that's accurate. That was a trauma, that was a trauma response, and that's not who I am at my core.
Well, if you look at children, the majority of children, those who aren't mistreated, are naturally joyful. And as they get older, they lose that. That's called growing up. They don't lose it because they have to, or because it's a natural process of getting older and moving from childhood to adolescence to adulthood. They lose it because the process of interacting with the world basically squashes it in people. The more you're told, do this, do that, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, all the shoulds and should nots, that's the real growing up, and you kind of have your energy quashed. So the natural joy in you gets covered over, gets dampened. But that doesn't mean it's not there. It just gets messed with. So in the societies where that's not so much the mode, adults have a more childlike quality and are more joyful. In societies where that is the mode, which includes all Western societies, people have longer faces. They don't experience that much joy because it doesn't fit with adulthood. That's the idea, the mental idea. But it can't be destroyed in you. You are born with it and it's natural. But it can be suppressed. It can be covered over. It can be compromised. Unfortunately, we call that growing up. Unfortunately, we don't see that that's a chief aspect of what we call growing up. In a more intelligent society, people wouldn't equate growing up with becoming sedate, becoming dampened in their natural life energy, in the natural joy of life. Because just the processes involved in being alive are all joy-based. They're enough. But we don't feel them. We're not aware of them. We're not in touch with them because of this thing called growing up, becoming an adult, which just amounts to suppressing your own joy. It's one big aspect. Getting more experience and getting better understanding, no problem. That has to happen. But it does not have to happen that it all becomes a joy killer. So that's part of the spiritual path. That's part of the spiritualization of the whole person, is you reclaim your joy. You find a way to become the child you used to be, but without leaving the adult to the side. You become a child and adult at the same time. The childlike joy and interest and curiosity and capacity to enjoy life, along with the adult comprehension, the adult experience, rather than you replace one with the other. That's one way to look at the genuine spiritual path. You're reclaiming your child nature, which is about trust, joy, and being in the moment. Children aren't worried about tomorrow, and children aren't dwelling on yesterday. Children who are brought up normal until about age 8, 9, 10 live totally in the moment. They're the perfect example for that. Dogs and children. Children don't care what happened this morning. They're involved with now. They don't care what's going to happen tomorrow. They don't think about it. That is the spiritual way. That is what you're trying to do if you're trying to move forward spiritually. But it's not like you have to figure out how to be. It's not like you have no experience. Everybody who was raised with a minimum of normal love and attention has already experienced it. It's called childhood. So it's reclaiming something that you left behind, but you didn't really leave it behind. You find the way to bring it forward again. Okay?
Shanti, could you please go to the cushion?
I've seen that when I'm experiencing envy, I don't necessarily see this every time, but I've seen that I thought, what am I doing? What's going on here? That I had a very uncomfortable feeling of some sort, and then I just want to jump out of it and find somebody, find something, and be envious of that, and not be feeling whatever discomfort or unpleasant sensation. That's just that's a physical sensation. And I could see myself once when I was walking along the street, just kind of jumping out of myself, like just find someone on the street and looking at them and having this envious feeling and idea that they, whatever it was, that they felt sure of themselves and weren't having some anxious thought, or I don't know the details now, but it was something along those lines. And I said, what did I just do? So I just wanted to share that part, but certainly I see that kind of thing come up and then have to recognize, and everything that people said today was very helpful. So thank you.
So you're saying you use envy to get rid of a worse feeling?
I'm not sure if it's worse or not. It's just the idea of escape. And then,
But escaping what?
a feeling of that I don't know what I'm doing, that a feeling of I think it's related to, which I see much more clearly now and since the retreat, feelings that the same feeling of there's something there should be doing, and I don't know what it is. Most of the time, I'm not. I think most of the time, I'm not concerned along those lines. I'm doing whatever, but partly it's because I'm occupied with something. When I'm not occupied, that kind of feeling can come up. And in New Orleans, it didn't come up very much, but I stood in front of people and said I was afraid of condemnation. We talked about that. It was coming up then, but in the activities and things, it was very, the support there or whatever reasons. But today, kind of being back in my household and seeing more clearly how ways in which I wasn't being real or wasn't being myself. Definitely there was a feeling of like, I'm swimming in an ocean and I don't know where I am, kind of. There's some way to be and I don't know what it is. Even though I actually know better, but nonetheless the feeling comes up.
So what you're describing is a feeling of not knowing yourself. That sometimes just arises spontaneously and you don't have a name for it. It feels very visceral, very physical, but it's what you're describing is not knowing yourself, not being in touch with yourself, right?
Yeah, I can feel that's right, because when I settle, when I'm willing to just be with the feeling and feel like what's going on, where am I, and I sink more into myself, then it's fine. Then even if there's some other thing going on, like I have an upset stomach or something, it's still all fine. Because it's solid. It's like, here I am. Inside, here I am. I don't mean where I'm standing.
So now you have a name for it. The name for it is not knowing myself, which is painful. So oddly enough, you use another painful feeling to get rid of that one. You use envy because that's a little less, stings a little less than an acute feeling of I don't know myself. or I'm not in touch with myself. So it's better to have a name for it. If it happens again and again, it's better to have a name for it.
Thank you.
If it's possible to have an accurate name for it, but that's what you're describing. So most people don't know themselves, but not everybody experiences it at all, or experiences it as a problem if they do. But it is a problem for everybody. You can't love yourself if you don't know yourself.
I feel so much energy and it's a sense of just being happy and cheerful. And I have the same time of feeling when I am feeling that way and then I go among other people, like somehow I'm not supposed to be that way. Like people will find it jarring or offensive. And like there's this pressure to hold it down all the time.
But that's not coming from the outside. That's your own idea.
Mm.
So that's in support of not knowing yourself. Because if it's natural to be this way and you're suppressing it and being that way, how can you know yourself? If you're being artificial, how can you know yourself?
Thank you.
That was the whole retreat, was about how we wear many false faces and are used to being false in so many ways, day in, day out. And that the spiritual path requires us to stop that and unify and be who we really are. That's what you're talking about.
It's much more clear to me now that I'm back, moment to moment, how these things come up that are false or a temptation to be false and then come back to myself. And
It's conditioning. We're conditioned to be false. We're experts. We're trained thoroughly in how to put on a false face, how to look good.
thank you.
Okay. Have time for one more, or we can stop early. You decide.
We have time if somebody would like to share. Swamiji, Alana would like to speak. Alana, could you go to the cushion, please?
Swamiji, since the retreat, I've noticed in some ways it's been easier to be less false and direct. Directness has fallen out of my face, fallen out of my mouth a few times, and it's been helpful to see my nonsense more clearly, and also when it's self-disclosure more. And it's nice because it's been so clean. It has prevented like prickly misunderstanding, and it's been really helpful. Just it felt like an honest self-disclosure, and it feels like it's like ironing out wrinkles inside me. And I think in Transcendation at the retreat, I shared, somebody asked about like, how do you know if it's, how do you know if you're sharing yourself? And my guess was that what I shared was that it's disarming. And I'm finding I'm disarming myself. when I'm saying something that's true, I'm disarming myself. And that's been, it's surprising, and it's delightful. One of the fears I had about getting to know myself is that I would be less likable, because inside of me it feels as there's a taking myself a little more seriously, but not in this too serious way, I think. But I'm afraid I will be less funny. And it's always debatable how funny I am now, even, but so maybe I can just give that one up. But the retreat was wonderful. New Orleans was far and away so much more fun so much more joyful than I at all expected and could have anticipated. And your words has left me more energized and more excited to keep going. And so I just wanted to thank you.
So being more aware of how we put on a false face when we start to work on not doing that anymore, that will always feel artificial, strange, daunting, too revealing, shaky. That's only because we're not used to it. It's only because we're expertly trained in falseness. It's part of the arduousness of the actual spiritual path that we have to go through. The difficulty of, and even embarrassment of, letting go of falseness, letting go of false ways of being. It's uncomfortable because we're not used to it. It's like seasickness. It doesn't feel good until you're used to it. And then it's totally natural. Then it starts to feel artificial, to be false, which it is. But we're so used to it, it feels normal and natural, not artificial. All of that's conditioned. All of that is as a result of growing up. You can't know yourself if you're exercising one false self after another, like we're trained to do. So you have to untrain yourself on how you've been trained to do that. That won't be easy, and it'll feel odd. It'll feel kind of unnatural, because it's become so natural to be trying to put your best foot forward, always trying to adapt to who you're with or the situation you're in, and mold yourself into some false version of you to fit better with that. But the price of fitting in is too high. It's your soul. You have to become who you really are. So the topics here that have emerged is knowing yourself, how we're conditioned to be always comparing ourselves to other people and what that engenders. And how our mind tricks us into certain thoughts and ideas and beliefs and perceptions that are totally inside our own head. They're not going on objectively in reality, outside of us in interaction. This is part of how you create your own reality. In societies where people are not so heavily conditioned to be false, where there's a value placed on being who you are, this whole mind game tends to not be there. So it's a question of culture. There are cultures where this is not so common, but if you come from a Western culture, you are guaranteed that this will be common and you will be a victim of it. The spiritual path is about, in this aspect, is about coming out of that, being no longer fooled by the game of comparison and competition. Comparison is competition. Comparison is who wins, who loses, who has more, who has less. That's a false game. existence does not have any winners or losers. Existence sees everyone and everything as equal. Every human being is equal to every blade of grass. There's no hierarchy. Existence embraces all equally and values all equally. So those human beings who can even accept the notion, which conventional mind usually can't, can even accept the notion that in the eyes of existence you are the same as a blade of grass. If you can accept that notion, then you have a chance to come out of the comparison/competition conditioning. That will only leave you in a suffering. That will only make you feel like you're the loser, not the winner. And then when you're the winner, you're guaranteed to, in some other way, be the loser. It's always a losing game. That's what's wrong with it. Competition is fundamentally flawed. It doesn't lead to a better society. It leads to people feeling bad. Because some people can get very wealthy in capitalism, in many systems actually. Competition is encouraged. But it's not good for anybody. It's not the natural way, it's not the divine way. The divine way is cooperation and mutuality and seeing the equality of everything. But you can't see it if you're blinded by competition and comparison. Comparison is a way of kind of blinding yourself because it's completely mental. You're completely selling yourself on an idea. And everybody's good at it. Everybody can sell themselves on any and as many ideas as you like. Because you're free to do that. You have complete freedom. But it's not reflected in existence. Existence isn't doing that. The existential, what actually exists, doesn't play any comparison game and isn't evaluating. So the more you're in your being, the less you're going to be prone to these mind tortures that you administer to yourself. So you have to recognize that you're not born knowing how to do this. You have to be taught how to do this. Nobody's born comparing. Nobody's born with that tendency. Somebody has to teach you how to do that. Somebody has to teach you how to feel bad about yourself. Somebody has to teach you how to be envious. Somebody has to teach you that you're not good enough. And somebody has to teach you that you need exterior recognition. Because nobody has those ideas naturally. So this is all part of deconditioning. How to get out of these traps. So understand more that this is all a false teaching that's been poured into you. And when you have these feelings and you have these thoughts, understand that it's not you. It's not something's wrong with you. You have them because you were taught to have them when you were too small to know any better. But now you're grown up and you know better if you choose to, and you can move out of it slowly, doing whatever it takes. And that's the spiritual requirement. Spiritual path means you don't allow these influences from long ago, from childhood, to continue. You actually grow up, you actually mature, you actually find the way to not carry out these self-inflicted tortures. Not so easy. But if you're serious about spiritual life, it's required. You weren't born to be tortured. You weren't born to be tormented, and you weren't born to feel less than someone else. So these things have to be addressed. You don't really have a choice. If you're spiritually inclined, you don't really have a choice, which is lucky, because the vast majority of people are not spiritually inclined and they're stuck with it. And it'll continue as a round and round game. And then after this life, whatever other life comes, it will continue there. Break out of it in this life and you're done. It won't follow you into some other form, some other life. So remember, being is existence. Your being comes before your thoughts, comes before your feelings, comes before your ideas and your approaches. So the way to know yourself is to find the way to be more in touch with your being and to grow that, to expand that. The more you expand that, the more you are expanding your consciousness, which ends up being the only true antidote to all these situations. But it's step by step. So thank you for getting together today, but also thank you for such a enjoyable and wonderful retreat in New Orleans. It was great to be together in that love city.